Hi, I'm Mary Lyons, the Wealth Woman.
And I'm Eric Alexander.
Welcome to the Wealth and Income Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, and I am really excited to share her with you guys. She is an entrepreneur, she is a coach, and she is a community builder. It's Andrea Engstrom. She is the founder of the Bold Mastermind, where she coaches entrepreneurs to gain clarity, confidence, and make connections, building their business and life on their own terms and in true authenticity. And I feel like there's so many things about that just hit right to what is important to all of us. She's been a coach for over a decade, and she's helped thousands of entrepreneurs build businesses. And as a real estate investor herself since 2021, she's completed more than 10 deals in her first 6 months and has 17 projects, including flips, long-term and mid-term rentals. She also has a podcast. Let's see if I can even say that word, The Andrea Engstrom Show, which I've been a guest on before. And in her Facebook community, Bold Women in Business Sisterhood, she provides powerful inspiration and practical tips to thousands of women. When she's not discussing business, she enjoys hot springs with her family near their home in South Central Colorado, or spending time with her grandboos in Kansas. So, Andrea, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm such a fan of yours, Mary. And Eric, I'm just getting to know you, but
Yeah,
I told
you'll
you
be
I've
a
heard
fan in
such.
just a second. It
Oh,
takes a
yeah.
minute.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I
Yeah,
have
thanks
one
so much.
question. What the heck is a grandboo?
A grandbaby, that's my grandbabies. They call me Yaya. So I've got two grandbabies and I call them my grandboos. I don't know. It's
Got
just
it.
like where I'm from the Midwest and we have all kinds of funny words we use. But my grandbabies call me Yaya. And I've got two boys. And then the third grandboo is on the way in December. So
Oh,
coming up
nice. I
soon, I'll
didn't know if
be.
it was like a baby dog that was from another dog or something. I didn't know if it was a new word
No,
that I
it's
just
a
didn't know.
child. It's an actual
Yeah,
child.
an
No, they're
actual human.
sweet little snuggly baby boos.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Uh,
Love it. Well, I think today we are going to talk about those three C's, the clarity, the confidence, and the connections. And, we spend a fair amount of time talking about not just financial strategy or the tools that you can use financially, but we actually believe that mindset is the most important thing that you can focus
Yeah.
on, that everything else stems from the way you view the world and the decisions you make because of your mindset. So let's start a little bit with clarity. I know that's a big talking point for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, clarity is not just about like knowing what you really want, but it's understanding your potential. So many women
Mm,
entrepreneurs that I talk to, they're feeling stuck in some way. They are feeling like they are forced to do things instead of really having control of their life and what happens in the day to day. And so understanding your own potential and developing your vision for the future. And then the next piece is getting really clear on your one thing. And so we love to do goal setting as part of what we do. And I know that's something that you all do so well, is helping people get to that clarity. One of the things that we do that I want to do with all of my students is help them to identify what's their one thing. And the principle of the one thing comes from a book by Gary Keller. You guys familiar with this? It's called The
Mhm.
One Thing. And so we
Yeah.
want to we want to know the answer to this question. What's the one thing that I could do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And so when we find ourselves in a state of overwhelm because we're trying to be everything and do everything, and a lot of us are juggling, trying to create multiple streams of income, also rocking a day job or a W-2, building a business. It just feels like a lot. A lot.
Mhm.
And so if we can get to clarity, that helps us to figure out like what's that one thing that I need to focus on that would make other things easier.
So, Andrew, on that side, is that one thing sort of centered around this idea of a zone of genius, like what you're really good at, or is it the one thing that, from a tactical standpoint, makes everything better, or is it a blend somehow?
Yeah, great question. So I love helping people identify their zone of genius, but what I'm talking about is when you look at the big picture of your life and we look at each of those categories. And so the categories of our life are not just about business, not just about what we do professionally.
Right.
It's our health. It's our romantic relationship with our partner. It's our family. It's what we do for fun. It's our home environment. It's, all the things that make up our life. And when we identify, if there's one of those areas that we're feeling very low satisfaction, or it's an area that we're struggling in, if we can focus on that area to move it back up into the area of high functioning, high energy, high satisfaction, it's typically the one thing that will make other things in our life easier or unnecessary. So just as an example, if you've ever had a diagnosis or you've met someone who just received a diagnosis, the one thing in their life more important than taking care of business is figuring out how to get their health back on track. Right.
Mhm.
And that for that period or that season of your life becomes your one thing. If you're struggling with personal energy and fatigue and, maybe gut health or something like that, or your hormones are crazy, like figuring, getting those things stabilized will impact your energy in such a way that it not only has a positive impact on your business, but also your relationship with your partner, your how you're showing up and being present with your children and your own grand boos, right? Like how you're showing up to all of the areas of your life are impacted by this one area that where you're struggling. And so getting really clear about what's the thing that I need to focus on that is going to make everything else easier or unnecessary. That's a big part of clarity. And I'll give you another example, and you guys have probably come across this. If your relationship with your spouse is tanking, it is very hard to make traction in your finances, in making positive momentum forward in building a business with creativity and power, because you have this kind of energy suck or drain, or you're not moving forward because you have uncertainty in this one area. And so there's some of us that, like, we're coming up on the fourth quarter of this year, and then pretty soon it's going to be the new year and everybody's going to be setting goals. And if there's an area of your life that is making everything else more difficult, there's a web that's created there. It may not be that they need to focus really hard this quarter on building their business. It may need to be that they need to get their energy right. They need to focus on
Mm.
building
Yeah.
back their relationship with their partner. Like, so for some people I talk to, their one thing is like, we got to go to a marriage counselor. That's the one thing this quarter that's going to make
Mhm.
everything else easier or
Yeah.
unnecessary. Because I'm trying to navigate around this problem I'm having in my relationship, and it's making me take longer to do things in my business or make traction in my personal finances, because that piece is missing.
So
Well,
it's almost like acupuncture, right? You just got to get that block out of the way.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I love this because I think in particular, when you are overwhelmed, it's because you have all of these things in front of you. It's like having a massive to-do list and not understanding how to prioritize it. And so because you can't prioritize it, you don't know what to do first, you just don't do anything. And so then you get almost like stuck in that state of paralysis because you're
Yeah.
afraid to start on the wrong thing, or doing that one thing may not have as big of an impact as what you're thinking of. And I see this being totally relevant because even just speaking to seasons in my own life, I made a series of real estate investments and ended up having to fire a builder, hiring a new builder. That builder had some interesting things happen in his life, and he ended up needing to move on as well. And then we finally got to where we were hiring a third builder. But dealing with projects of the scope that we were looking at with that much chaos going on, I
Yeah.
could feel that bleeding into every aspect of my life, because the stress from dealing with that and the amount of time it was taking to deal with that was taken away from the business. And
Yes.
then the business is maybe not as productive because you're focusing on this other thing over here. And then you're like, wait, no, because the business needs to produce the revenue to finish the construction. And then you just feel the stress. And so then you're short with your spouse and you're short with your kids, and you can see that whole trickle down. And then when you realize, like, the only thing you need to actually do is just like get the right builder in there, And then you
Yes.
can focus on everything the way you would normally because you can see you're making progress. It's like everything just goes, ah.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's exactly it.
well, and how many times is it and your point, Mary, right? Your solution and the energy block was getting a better builder or the right builder, right? But how many times is it we just got to stop that project. We got to get like carterize it, just cut it out. And to me, there's a certain point of like reluctance to do that because you feel like you're sort of losing a kid or losing an arm or like there's a loss and like that was going to be a really great thing and we had all these hopes and dreams, but it almost like a sunk cost bias. Like, nope, it just needs to be gone. And like you've got that sort of residual emotional effect of like, we don't need to fix it. It just needs to go away to
But
remove the energy.
I feel like that's why you hire somebody like Andrea, right? It's why you jump in and do all of that. Because in my experience, when you're in the middle of that, it is almost impossible to be objective because you're emotionally
100%.
tied to the
Yeah.
outcome or the process or whatever it is. And so if you're trying to make those decisions in a vacuum and you don't have somebody offering a different perspective to you, I feel like it's easy to stay stuck. Like you
Yeah.
can't
Or
get
kill
the
something off.
clarity.
Right.
Yeah, if all you can see is what you can see, and you don't have like the more global perspective of what's happening and how it's affecting everything. I think it's hard to
Mhm.
see it, right? Like I always find it's really easy to give other people advice. Like I'm like, oh, I can solve your problem in 5 seconds. But then when I'm in the middle of it myself, I'm like, oh, it's so complicated.
Well, it's because you're married to your
Yeah.
problem. Like not Mike,
Right.
but like you're
Oh,
like
yeah. Please clarify that because he is a listener. Like,
right.
let's be very
Sorry,
clear.
Mike, I love you, but it's going to be a hard conversation later. No, but I mean,
Oh,
you're
no.
too close to the problem. Like you're too in the middle of it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple things. What you want most is typically on the other side of what you resist most. And so sometimes we want to cut something out completely in order to avoid a hard conversation or to avoid
Mm,
having to do something hard. And, I know y'all love the book Who Not How. And
yeah.
sometimes we're struggling because we're trying to figure out how. And the reality is that we don't need to necessarily know the how. We need a new who. And so, going back what to Mary was saying, it may be that we just need a new contractor, or it may be that we need a mentor who's been in that position before, who can give us some objective advice or can give us some perspective so that we don't just want to quit our life and like,
Mhm.
flush a bunch of money down the toilet. But, sometimes we do find ourselves in a position where, I think the only thing worse than going down the wrong path is going down the wrong path enthusiastically for a long period of time because we're trying to force something to work
Right.
that is not going to work. And so that's when, again, we need a who that can give us objective perspective on that situation and be able to figure out like, but Mary, I love your example. I think, when you've got something and it's that highest area of dissatisfaction, the area that is where you can make the most traction in the other areas of your life is when you solve the thing that is creating the most friction. And so this
Mm,
idea of like taking at least a quarterly audit of what is my levels of satisfaction in each of these categories of my life and where am I experiencing the most friction that if I were to solve that problem or improve that area of my life, we know that it's going to have that trickle effect on the other areas, and that's the principle of the one thing.
So I'm just going to say, I think that's actually a lot harder than you just made it sound, right? Like I'm like, oh, the one thing I can do
oh,
that. But
it's
I
way
think
hard.
what you're describing requires a degree of self-awareness and honesty in your self-analysis, and then a willingness to become something new, right? Like I had an interesting conversation. It may have actually been with you, and now I'm like, who was I talking to when I said that? But what I took from the conversation was, in order to become the person I want to be, I have to let go of the person I am.
Yeah.
And that's hard, but that's in some ways that's what you're talking about because it's confronting the thing that is dysfunctional. That's
Yeah.
probably me, if we're being candid, right? And then
I
making
am
the
my own worst problem.
yeah, hi, it's me, I'm the
Yeah.
problem. It's not a
Yeah.
Taylor Swift song.
Yeah.
But I think that is so much harder to actually do, especially if you're trying to do it on your own.
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to just speak as a woman, um I think as women we are so programmed to focus on what everyone around us needs. And I'd love to hear from you too, Eric, because I don't
Sure.
know if men experience this at the same level. But I know that, I from a very young age was raised to be the one to take care of everyone around me. And I watched my mom model that. Like my dad's, if he needs something, my mom's there and she's taking care of it and she's doing it. And so I have this early programming that says I want to make sure everybody around me is okay and is happy. And I spend much less time thinking about, am I okay? Am I happy? Is what I'm doing in my life in these areas actually working for me? Or is it something that I've created that I think is to serve everyone else around me and make sure everybody else is happy and okay? And so there's certainly an identity shift that has to happen to become the one who has that level of self-awareness, that is willing to take action in a different way and recognize the patterns that we need to break, the things that are not working in our life, and show up differently and just with a degree of honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think part of that on that other end of it, to your sort of energy point, like if there's blocks, you're not good for anybody. It's
Right.
like if you can figure that one thing out that is like where you need to be, where you can show up as your highest and best, then if you think through, we talk about sort of income being a waterfall. Like if I take care of income first, then liquidity is going to naturally happen and legacy happens whether we want it to or not. And I
Yeah.
think from an energy standpoint, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're healthy and thriving and all that other stuff, and everybody gets what they need anyway
Yes.
as a byproduct, but then they don't get the byproduct in a negative way. They get it because it's an overflow. Like, and so
Yes.
if you're only focused on what they need and you don't understand what you need,
Hmm.
then everybody's getting what they need, but at your expense, not out of
Correct.
your abundance. Like it's a minimal mindset versus an abundant mindset kind of thing of it. I feel
Hmm.
very woo woo for my personality, but there you go.
I know
But
you're
it,
coming out super woo today. Who are you?
but I
Well,
think it's
and
the other end of the guys too. Like we want to go
Yeah.
provide, we want to go do all these things, but when we're
Mhm.
blocked on that side of it, we're kind of jerks to everybody around us, right? Like if we don't feel like we're doing our job, right? If we're a provider, protector, whatever that role is, right? Then man, we may be doing it, but we're doing it and everybody suffers on the other end of it because we're doing it really ugly, right? And so I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think if we're doing the highest and best, everybody gets better of us
Yeah.
in the process.
well, and I think just because Eric, I've known you as long as I have as well. I think you, and this is what makes me think this is almost a universal issue. There's not a gender issue.
For
I
sure.
think, I think that the difference is like for women, it's keeping everybody happy, right? And I think for men, it's more keeping everybody like safe, right? It's the providing, protecting side of things, whereas we maybe focus more on is everybody emotionally okay? And like, have the kids been fed and all of that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the same problem. It just expresses very differently, I
And I don't
think.
care whether they've been fed. If they're smart enough, they'll figure out how to feed themselves. Like we'll just make them tougher, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
I think that's the right approach, Mary.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love all that. So let's talk about confidence here for just a second. So once you get the clarity, let's say I figure out this is the problem I need to solve, or this is the one thing I need to focus on. If it is a problem for me and it has continuously been a problem for me, I would say that probably I don't have the confidence to make the decisions because, like, going back to the example that I used, if I picked a builder who did a bad job the first time and I was confident he was going to be good, and then I picked a builder that, had some other issues the second time, and then, had a contractor who didn't do a great job, then when I go to find that next builder, even if I have clarity that that's what I need to do, my confidence is just shaken at
Mm.
that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So being able to, part of this is that journey of identity, right? And so one of the things that we do in some of the clarity steps is what leads to confidence, and it's overcoming limiting beliefs, because sometimes what we have done in our past or what we have experienced. And I kind of describe it like a backpack. So it's like we're all wearing a backpack. And every time something bad happens to us, we put a rock in that backpack. Every time someone says something sideways that doesn't hit us right, every time we say something stupid and we feel it, we're like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Yeah. And it's like another rock goes in the backpack. And I would include things like when you decide to launch something and it doesn't happen as quickly for you as you hope that it would. When you see other people being successful and you make a decision that you're going to do that thing too, and then you watch other people around you winning and it's not clicking for you yet. And it's like another rock goes in the backpack because we will allow those things in our life to tell us what is for us or what we are capable of, and they are lies. And so our brain starts to lie to us saying, well, maybe I'm the problem. It's me. I'm not capable of making a good decision and choosing a good contractor. Maybe I'm a bad picker, right? We will say that about all kinds of relationships. Oh, here I go again, putting myself I didn't set boundaries, just like I didn't do it in my first marriage, just like I didn't do it with my kids. And now I've done it with this contractor. And so we will get into a pattern of, and it's good to take accountability, but being a pattern of like saying that I am not capable of good things moving forward or not deserving of good things because of the way things have worked out in the past. And so we got to work on that mindset. And so part of the way that we do that is replacing those limiting beliefs with affirming powerful beliefs. And so we walk through an exercise together, and I do this with all of my students where we will write down what are all of those things that are and I call it liabilities, the lies that you say to yourself about your abilities. And so
Ooh,
we write
that's a
down
great
all of,
phrase. Damn it.
yeah. So your liabilities that you tell yourself are just lies about your abilities. And so to kind of get all of those out, what are those things that you say to yourself when you're by yourself that are not serving you well? And so just as an example, I had this sort of inner dialogue for years where I would say to myself, well, I'm a quitter. If things get hard, I move on to something that's easier. And I had a life of experience telling me that was true about me. That I quit guitar lessons 5 times because it hurt my fingers and my teachers always made me practice and I hated it. And so I just would quit. But I really wanted to play guitar, but it was really hard. And so I'm like, well, I'm a quitter. I quit my first marriage. And there's a lot more to that story, but that was the narrative that I had in my head. I dropped out of college because a lot of reasons, but it was like, well, I started failing a math class and and I had this great job that I was excited about. So I just let it go. I'm a quitter. When things get hard, I move on to something easier. And when I decided to start real estate investing, and I had a lot of wins in my life too, but that underlying idea that I'm a quitter was playing back over and over. Like maybe that's who I am. Maybe I just need to accept that and recognize if something's hard that I'm just going to need to move on. And when I got into real estate investing and I started to take action, got something under contract. And you use that as an example, like dealing with a contractor that didn't do what they said they would do, and the money starts to run out, and like, where did it go and what's going on? It can be one of the most stressful things in your life because there's such
Wow.
high.
I have never talked to a real estate investor who's been in business for a long period of time that doesn't have a story like that.
100%. And so recognizing, when I got into it, I was like, this is going to be the hardest thing that I have ever done. Because there was big dollar amounts attached to the projects. There were things outside of my control, things that I didn't know that I didn't know. And so going into that process, I had to change that self-talk, and I did it very intentionally. And so I changed that I'm a quitter into I am tenacious. I can do hard things. And so that was one of my affirmations that I started saying to myself every day, because I know that my natural is that I want to default to something that feels easier. And so I had to consciously start saying to myself, my intention, this is who I choose to show up as today. because I don't naturally show up as her. Naturally, I want to do the easy thing. We want the easy button. We want a magic pill. But if we're going to make strides in our life, in our finances, and make big things happen in our business, it is going to be hard. And so reminding myself every day that I am tenacious, I can do hard things, help to put like a new pathway in my brain, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what is true and what you tell it. So if I continue telling myself for years that I'm a quitter, my brain's going to think that true. If I start saying to myself, I am tenacious, my brain's going to go to work to make that true, because my brain doesn't want me to be a liar. My brain wants me to be tenacious if I say that I am. And so I'm going to look for opportunities to show up as her, because I'm intending that that's who I am.
So Eric sent me an article years ago at this point that actually really helped me with this concept, right? Because just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true or helpful.
Absolutely.
And so like that in particular, like, is it true? Is it helpful? Those things are there, but I think sometimes it's hard to know if it's true or not when it's your own thought about yourself, like it's going into your head. And the article that he sent me basically said, if you label that negative voice in your head, like give it a name, make it an outside person, that it is easier to reject the thought. And so I actually think that a lot of my employees now think that I'm a crazy person, because you can walk by my desk and multiple times a day, you're going to hear me say, "Shut up, Linda." Right? Because whenever that voice shows up and is like, "No, you can't do this," or "You're not capable," or "You're
Yeah.
going to mess this up," then I say out loud, "Shut up, Linda." And then it would probably be an appropriate time to say the affirmation. But I find that having labeled that voice outside of me is a way of saying, no, that's not me. Right?
Yeah.
Just because it pops up, that's not me. It's not who I want to be. That's Linda. That's
Yeah.
Linda's problem. Linda's,
Yeah.
she can go somewhere else. Linda the liar.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the first idea or the first thought that pops into our head is usually our programming. It's something that comes from, years of telling ourselves things or of hearing other people say things. It's how we were raised. It's what we, what we sort of absorbed through our environment and things like that. So the first thought that pops into your head is your programming. The second thought is who you really are. And so your
Mm.
ability to correct yourself and to stop yourself from and go, "Shut up, Linda." Like that's not me. That's my programming. And I'm going to dismiss it because it's not the truth about who I choose to be today and how I'm going to show up to this. And so learning to trust your second thought as the more
Mm.
true version of yourself when you're in a path of working on yourself and getting better. If the better thought that comes is that next thought, trust the next thought, because that's who you're choosing to show up as, not just your default programming that you're trying to work through. Give
Yeah.
yourself grace for
Well,
that.
yeah, and there's a John Acuff who we follow quite a bit, or I follow quite a bit. He has this great sort of, and it sort of marries questions, right? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it helpful? And
Mhm.
sort of like, and it was a book for teens, but I think maybe I'm a 10-year-old at heart. But like, so it was like sort of thinking through that, like, okay, is Linda saying something that's true? No, it's not true. Is it kind? No, it's really
Yeah.
ugly. Isn't it helpful? No, it's like it's not a helpful thought to say I'm an idiot, right?
Yeah.
But we run into this so often with clients, and I see it so often, and it's the most heartbreaking sort of client interactions that we have, because I know that I can solve their problem. Like they're in a tough spot, they don't have a ton of money, they've made some
Yeah.
bad choices, they're in this space, and it's happened over and over again. And I can see exactly, if I just do this and this, it solves all your problems. Like I can make life like you want it to be, and I can do it really, really easily. Um,
But
and I
they
can,
don't trust themselves.
but they don't trust themselves to make good choices because they've made so
Yeah.
many bad choices because that's how they got to that spot.
And then
And
they
so
choose not
it's,
to.
well, and it's they don't choose a bad decision. They choose no decision because they can't see good advice because they don't trust themselves, to your point. Right. And it's really hard to see because it's an identity problem. It's like, you know, dude, this is just math. Like we don't have to do anything really heroic here. It's like A plus B and I can solve your problem. But they like there's a visual, like they cannot see it because they don't trust themselves to make those choices. So it's really fascinating to watch that play out.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I like to do as part of the confidence building process is is practicing the concept of radical responsibility. And so when, all of us have things in our life that are things that we've put off, things that we've, the pictures that are leaning against your wall that you need to hang on the wall, and you've just let them sit
You
there
have a
since you
camera in my house? What are you doing?
Yes.
It's not creepy at
Yes,
all.
it's the boxes that we haven't unpacked since a move, or the bags of clothes that we're going to donate that are sitting in the garage, or the light bulb that needs to be changed, or the towel bar that's kind of wiggly, right? Like all of us have these things in our life that, any of those things on their own are not a big deal, but they're little energy suckers, and they're little reminders of what we can expect of ourselves. And so it's like, and
Mm.
I'm the person that, hits snooze on my alarm. I'm the person that has this crap sitting in the corner for months that I didn't deal with. And so the concept of radical responsibility is that we make a list of what those things are, and then we start knocking them out, and it doesn't feel like it's a big thing, but we're teaching ourselves what we can expect of ourselves and changing our self-talk around that. And so we all have these little lies that we tell ourselves too, about like, oh, I'm creative, so I can't be organized, or
Mhm.
I used to tell myself, this is really funny. You'll appreciate this, Mary. When I was a kid, my mom would get on me because my room is a mess all the time. And like later in my teens, I would be like, Mom, I have excellent visual tune out skills, which
Uh,
means like I can just walk around the mess and like not even see
Doesn't
it.
bother me.
It's one of my gifts. And she's like, no, you're living in a pigsty. Like this is
yeah.
chaos. And so I was telling myself these little lies, but what that would equate to is that was that I was like, well, I don't take care of things that need to be taken care of. And so changing that behavior and changing that self-talk and saying, I am the one who takes care of business. And this is especially important for entrepreneurs who are getting something new started, and you're used to working on a big team or something like that. And
Yep.
now all of a sudden you find yourself and you're if you're not the one doing it, it is not getting done. If you're not the one at least delegating it, it is just sitting there not getting done. And so I remember when I started my real estate investing business, that I got several deals going really quickly, and I quit my day job after about 9 weeks. And so then I found myself at home, like focused on real estate, and like all by myself doing this thing. And my husband was like out on the job sites doing stuff, and I'm at home trying to get financing in order and make calls and line up all the communications of the partnerships and all the details. And I found myself like in this mode of talking out loud, and I would bend down and I would pick up a sock and I'd throw it in the laundry basket, and I would say, if it is to be, it is up to me. Nobody's coming along to do this thing for me. And I started to like hype myself up, is like I am the one who handles my business. And so that idea of like just like saying it out loud, and it kind of goes back to that concept of like we got to say stuff out loud sometimes. Sometimes we got to
Right.
tell Linda to shut up out loud, because
Mhm.
Right.
because I believe our words have power. I believe we were created in the image of a God who spoke the very world into existence, and our words have the power to create or to destroy. And the words that we say to ourselves when we're by ourselves, whether it's out loud or just in our head, have the ability to either tear us down and destroy us, or to build us up and allow us to have the power to move forward with confidence. And so that self-talk piece is super, super important.
Well, and I like what you said, because it's not just the talk, it's the action that comes right after. Like
Yeah.
that part I think is so key, because I feel like there's so much stuff out there right now that's like, no, you just manifest it. You just put it into the universe. And I'm like, oh my God, if I could feel my way just into action, right? Like if I could just be like, I'm a
Yeah.
confident millionaire, and then tomorrow I wake up that way, that would be beautiful. But I don't think it's quite like that. You can be a confident millionaire, but you have to take the steps to actually
Yes.
get there too. You can't just like wish it into being, right? Like,
Yeah.
because if I could, I would have won the lottery 6 times already. Like it just would
Yeah.
have
This
happened.
week. I
I
mean,
am a
this week.
lottery winner, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not quite it, right? There's a certain amount of feel your way into action. But then there is a certain amount of acting your way into those feelings, because when you tell yourself you're capable and then you do it, what comes on the other side of that is, I did it once, I can do it again, right?
100%.
It's why you have, like in baseball, you have confidence hitters. They hit a couple times and then they're on a streak, right? But you miss a couple of times and then they hit a slump. There's something that changes when the voice and the action show up together at the same time.
Yeah. Feelings follow actions. It is never the other way around.
Yeah.
Never the other way around. And so we cannot feel our way into good action the way that we can act our way into good feelings. So it's kind of, I always go back to the health example because I think it's something that everybody can relate to. It's like if you are in a, if you're in a slump with your energy, if I wait until I feel like going to the gym, I am literally never going to get my butt to the gym.
Mhm.
But if I lace up my sneakers and I get my butt out the door and then I go to the gym, pretty soon I'm going to be so happy I did. I'm going to feel like going a little bit farther. I'm going to feel like I want to, and after you do that a few times, you get that adrenaline, you get the good positive endorphins flowing and you feel like showing up again. But the same thing is true in every other area of our life. If we simply take action, and I like to encourage people to take small, like what is the minimum action that you could take that gets you moving in that direction, right? If we're feeling stuck, if we're feeling like we don't want to do the thing or we don't have the energy around it, to just make it say, okay, doesn't matter how I feel. I've made a decision and I'm going to show up as her. And so what is the micro action that I could take that will get me moving in that direction? And I have a client that is she's in healthcare and she has a couple breaks during the day. And she said, I have two 15-minute breaks and I am committing that on one of those breaks, I'm going to do the hardest thing that I am procrastinating on. Because she's like, by the time I get home from my day job and I want to do
Yeah.
something to
You're
move my business
gassed.
forward, you're gassed. You don't, your decision-making power is kind of gone. And she's like, I'm just going to make it my default that I'm going to do the hard thing for 15 minutes. And I'm going to just take a little bit of action forward because I know that that's the thing holding me back. And it's the thing that's going to create momentum because I'm proving to myself that I'm going to show up and do the thing, even if it's
Yeah.
just for 15 minutes.
Yeah. It's
Right.
the eat the
Right.
frog deal, right? Just like
Yeah.
go and do the hard thing first and get it out of the way.
Yeah.
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 Well, let's talk about connections. How does that come together?
Yeah. So as we step into our personal clarity and we build the confidence and we start taking action, one of the most powerful ways to grow your business and to accomplish the things you want to accomplish in your life is through making powerful connections. And so there's a method that I teach where we are literally looking for who are the people who are already meeting with the people that we want to do business with. And so it's a one-to-many strategy instead of a one-on-one. Because I think a lot of business owners will spend a lot of time and money marketing, wheel spinning, cold calling, pulling lists, spending a lot of money on ads and all of these things that we want to that we try to do when one of the fastest routes to be able to get some traction happening is through relationships and it goes back to that concept of who, not how. We're like, oh, I need this complicated strategy and I need to set up this CRM and all these systems. But in reality, to get some traction going, to get some income created in your business, the most powerful way to get started is typically through the referrals, connections, or networking with people who can introduce you to the right people. And so that's the process. I encourage people to like when you step into that confidence, one of the ways we practice confidence is by simply reaching out to others. And there's some scripts that I provide, but one of the key areas or the key things that I recommend is that you reach out to someone who is already working with the type of people that you need to work with, and you ask and you say, hey, I am building my referrals partnerships, and I would love to hear more about how you do business and who is a good referral for you so that I know how to spot a great referral and how to send them your way. Would it be okay if we got together for 20 minutes? Can I come by your office and and chat with you about that. And so the goal is that we're always seeking to be of service first before we're asking for anything.
Right.
And that's always going to be the winning. And I think a lot of people, when we talk about referrals or networking, it's like they think that they have to show up and sound really smart, and that they have to be super impressive. And I do coach people how to, write their elevator speech and how to introduce yourself with confidence. But the more important piece of making connections is showing up and being of service to others. It's
Right.
just from a really genuine place of, I want to, like, I am for you. I want to see how I can help you, and not ask for anything in return when you're initiating those conversations.
Well, and I think so many people miss out on those connections because they don't show up. And
Yeah.
then they don't keep showing up, and they don't keep showing up. Like, I think I keep talking to my 12-year-old about this. I'm like, look, you don't have to be amazing. You just have to keep showing up, because like 99% of the people don't. And
Yeah.
they show up once and they're like, man, I didn't get any business. And I'm like, dude, shut up, go back. Like, and you don't have to be amazing.
Consistency.
Shut up, go back, you know?
The consistency and the reliability, I think, are key. And then I also think, I mean, it's like anything else, right? It takes what, 10,000 hours to become an expert. So if you don't keep going, even in the connection space, like you don't move forward at the same rate when things are new as you do once you have it down pat. And so I think that
Yeah.
that is incredibly true. I can say that oftentimes too, like thinking about connections in general, even beyond referrals.
Yeah.
Um, when you have a reputation for being a connector, almost anybody will take a meeting with you just
Yeah.
because you have a reputation for consistently helping other people. And the
Yeah.
opportunity that shows up once you've built that is totally different than when you have a reputation of being a taker or a user. So I think that part sits
Yes.
there. But I think that willingness to have conversations with people and help them when that's what you're putting out there, that's what starts coming back to you as well, is that then people are willing to take that extra step and help you or make the introduction that then is maybe the difference maker in your career. Or, I think about this just in terms of recently, there was a woman who kind of out of the blue reached out to me, one of an advisor I used to work with like 20 years ago. I don't know how I came up in conversation, but made this introduction. And so this woman, called me and she was like, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? And I was like, yeah, sure. And now I'm like teaching some classes for people that she's coaching and stuff like that. And then I'm like, wait, this sounds like Andrea. It's actually a different person, right? But I think the thing that happens is when you give of yourself and you do it not from the standpoint of what am I going to get back, but how can I help others, that's what you get known for. And then people with that same mentality are the people that end up being in your circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive, right? I mean, I think
Mhm.
all the times in my life that I have been focused on what's in it for me, I have destroyed things. Whereas when I focus on how can I help others, I've been able to build really amazing things. And I think
Yeah.
that is a universal experience, whether we realize it or admit it to ourselves or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so many of us will hesitate to show up, will hesitate to reach out, especially when we're new in business, in the industry that we're in, because we are afraid that someone is going to ask us a question that we don't know the answer to.
Yep.
And so and what's funny is like, we're just like literally focused on ourselves in
Mhm.
that moment, and like, oh, what are they going to think of me? And so the shift that I encourage people to have is when you are getting ready to go out and go to a networking event or reach out to someone, to literally stop thinking about yourself and just say, how can I show up and pray and provide value? How can I be so interested in other people that they feel really good about themselves, because I'm asking them questions that allow them to shine. I'm asking them questions about what do they do that I could share with someone else that would allow me to make a really good connection for them, and to just shift that energy from like, are people going to think I'm stupid or judge me in some way, to literally just saying, I'm going to show up and provide value by asking them all about them, by being the best listener in the room, by actively looking for connections that I can make for other people. And that shift of energy of being a connector instead of looking for an opportunity for me is a game changer. Like that's what changed everything for me when I started having that attitude. Like I got out of my own head and stopped feeling like everybody was judging me because I just stopped thinking about it, and I was
Right.
like, how can I show value by just being a dang good listener, you know?
Well, and I think it creates a bunch of grace too on the other end of it, that if you're
Yeah.
really that interested in them, then if you don't know everything, they're like, yeah, but she'll get there. Like, I think you sort of build your own grace. And I think the gamification of that, and you mentioned this before, and I thought it was a good quote, but that idea of like, if we're all made with sort of that divine spark, that sort of in the image of God kind of mindset, then it's almost a game of like, okay, what's amazing about them? Like, what is their
Yes.
sort of zone of genius, divine spark? What does that look like? And if you ask kind of questions, you kind of you start figuring it out.
Yeah.
And if you treat it as a game, then it's a less about you, but it's
Yeah.
maybe they figure something out about themselves that they didn't know. Like, and
Yeah.
it sort of becomes a fun game at that point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I took that Strengths Finder profile thing, and it told me years
Huge fan.
ago, and yeah, and it told me that my number one strength is called woo. It's winning others over,
Yeah.
and the way I describe that is like I'm really good at listening to what someone is saying and then pointing out to them what's great about them. And so that's part of what I try to teach my students is to like listen really well and ask great questions so that you can be a mirror that reflects someone else's light to them, and just help people feel awesome about themselves. Like what I love about what you just said is this, and here's why I think you're like what I just heard. Like I love how you guys do that differently than others, and let me tell you why that's amazing. And so
Yeah.
literally just reflecting the light that people are shining at you uh
Yeah.
I'm just
fills
going to
them
say
up.
from experience, you are amazing at that. Like it is like, well, because think about this. I think there are so many people that may be like a lion, but they look in the mirror and they see a little tabby cat, right?
Yeah.
They don't, it's almost like having ego dysmorphia. Like you just
Yeah.
don't see what's real. And so when you run into somebody who's like, no, you're not a tabby cat, you're a freaking lion, dude. And you're like, oh, maybe I am. Like it allows you to step into that. And I think that goes right back into that confidence piece because when you talk to somebody who you feel like really sees you and really gets you, that's so rare these days
Yeah.
that you just want to do whatever you can to keep them close to you. And if that
Yeah.
means making connections and helping them and doing all that stuff, I think it just like it creates this ongoing thing. But that is, I mean, hands down, that is one of my favorite things about you is that I leave every conversation feeling more powerful than I did entering the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's I mean, right, hands down, you nailed it. That is a superpower that you are currently using for good. And I love that. Right. And
Yeah.
it's,
Awesome.
I'm just going to say this because I'm going to go into like a shameless plug for you here. Who doesn't want to coach that you leave every conversation going, I am a badass from? I mean,
Yes.
that's what you're
Right.
getting to. It's not, and what you're saying about sort of removing yourself and the ego, like, because I feel like a badass, that is how I know you are a badass. I'm like, oh, that's like magic, what she just did.
Yeah.
It's next level. So if people want more of you, I know I do, where can they find you? What is the best way for them to reach out to you and stay in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is andreaengstrom.com, and you can register for. I have an upcoming masterclass called The Three Secrets to Double Your Income: Clarity, Confidence, and Unlimited Referrals, where I'll go into even more depth around the things that we've talked about today. And if you're a woman entrepreneur, go to Facebook. I have a group called Bold Women in Business Sisterhood. It's a free group for you to join, and I'd love for you to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that. Eric, if they're
Yeah.
looking for you,
Thanks.
where can they find you?
You can find me at Economics with Eric, wherever you use social media.
Andrea, thank you so much for being with us
Thank
today.
you.
I really appreciate you and your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you
Thanks,
guys
Andrew.
today.
Specific financial concepts and advanced strategies are presented to you for educational purposes only. We cannot and do not guarantee their applicability to your individual circumstance. We encourage you to seek personalized advice from qualified professionals on all financial matters.
Provided content is for overview and is not intended and should not be relied upon as individualized tax, legal, fiduciary, or investment advice. Neither Wealth Woman, Acorn Grove, or the Wealth and Income Podcast, nor their representatives provide tax or legal advice. For answers to specific questions and before making any decision, please consult a qualified attorney or tax advisors.
All numeric examples and any individual shown are hypothetical and were used for explanatory purposes only. Actual results may vary.
Investing involves risk, which includes potential loss of principal. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Life insurance should be purchased by individuals that have a need to provide a death benefit to protect others with insurable interest in their lives against financial loss. Life insurance is not a retirement plan, investment, or savings account.
Not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or any governmental agency. Insurance and investment products, not a deposit, not FDIC or NCUA insured, not insured by any federal government agency, not guaranteed by any bank or credit union, may lose value.
Please visit the Wealth Woman website disclosure page for other important disclosures.